So you've probably heard all the buzz about de-dollarization, right? Well, today we're going to dig into something that's actually way more profound. We're talking about a quiet, under-the-radar rewiring of Africa's entire financial system. It's happening right now. And look, this isn't about some flashy new currency meant to take on the dollar. It's about building a whole new set of pipes, a new plumbing system to just go around it entirely. And it all kicks off with a really simple question that has a surprisingly complex answer.
To really get the scale of what's happening, let's just start with a basic scenario. Imagine you've got a company in Kenya, and they need to buy something from a supplier in Ghana. Just a couple of countries away on the same continent. How does that payment actually get from Nairobi to Accra?
Well, the answer is kinda bonkers. For decades, that payment, that Kenyan money, would often have to take a 6,000-mile detour. It would get wired to a bank in New York, get swapped into US dollars, and then wired all the way back to Africa to be swapped again into Ghanaian currency. Just think about that. The delays, the fees, the risk. For years, that was just the normal cost of doing business.
And this crazy roundabout journey is what we can call the invisible detour. It's basically a leftover piece of a financial system that just was never designed with Africa in mind, and it has a seriously high price tag. And you could actually put a number on it. According to the United Nations, it costs a whopping 50% more to trade within Africa than the global average. A huge slice of that extra cost comes from all those currency conversions and paying fees to foreign banks. It's been this massive economic anchor just dragging down trade between neighbors.
So to really understand why this bizarre system even exists, you've got to look back. The roots of this dependency, they go way deep, back to the colonial era and a currency whose ghost, you could say, still hangs over the finances of millions of people today.
And that brings us to the CFA franc. It was created by France way back in 1945, and its name originally stood for French Colonies of Africa. Now, it's still used by 14 different nations, and it's pegged to the euro, with its value guaranteed by the French Treasury. This direct link means their monetary policy is essentially decided in Europe, not Africa.
Now, the CFA franc is, well, it's complicated and super controversial. On one hand, supporters say it brings stability and makes trade easier. But on the other hand, critics argue it basically strips countries of their economic independence and funnels wealth back to France. But no matter where you stand on it, the whole debate really shines a light on that core issue, this deep reliance on outside financial systems.
But here's the kicker. While all these arguments are going on about the old way of doing things, the future is, well, it's already here. A new system has been quietly built, and the switch has been flipped. And this one doesn't just tweak the old rules, it throws the rulebook out the window.
And this is where we get to the solution. Africa's new financial backbone. And like I said, it's not some flashy new crypto coin. It's something way, way more important. It's new plumbing.
It's called PAPSS. That's the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. And what it is, at its heart, is a brand new infrastructure for the whole continent. It lets any two countries in Africa trade directly with each other in their own local currencies. No more US dollars needed. No more 6,000-mile detours through New York.
So, let's go back to our example. With PAPSS, a business in Nigeria can now pay for those Kenyan goods using Nigerian naira. PAPSS works its magic in the background, and almost instantly, the supplier in Kenya gets paid in Kenyan shillings. It's direct, it's fast, and it's African-owned.
And how fast are we talking? Well, a transaction that used to take days, and I mean days to clear, can now be fully settled and done in as little as 120 seconds. Yeah, 2 minutes.
So what does this all add up to? The people behind PAPSS estimate that by just cutting out the middleman banks and all those unnecessary fees, the system could save the continent $5 billion every single year. And that's $5 billion that now stays in Africa to fuel African growth.
But this whole revolution isn't just an internal affair. As Africa is building its own financial plumbing, it's also changing how it deals with the rest of the world. It's forging new kinds of partnerships that operate completely outside of the traditional Western-led financial system.
And one of the biggest new players on the scene, as you might guess, is China. China's been offering African nations an alternative financial lifeline, one that runs parallel to those old systems we've been talking about.
And you can see why this is so appealing. I mean, traditionally, if a country had a currency crisis, they'd go to the IMF. But those loans almost always come with really strict political strings attached, like forcing austerity measures. China, though, offers something different: currency swaps. It's basically a line of credit that gives a country cash, but with no political demands. For a nation trying to guard its independence, that's a pretty compelling offer.
Now, of course, let's be real, this isn't just charity. China has its own very clear economic goals. They want to secure access to raw materials, they want to open up new markets for Chinese products, and they want to strengthen their massive global trade project, the Belt and Road Initiative. It's a pragmatic partnership, plain and simple.
So when you start putting all these different pieces together, you've got the internal plumbing of PAPSS, you've got these new external partnerships, you start to realize that what we're watching is a fundamental rewriting of the global economic map.
And there's this quote that I think just nails it. It's not a coin war, it's a plumbing war. See, everyone's obsessed with finding the next big reserve currency, the next coin that's going to challenge the dollar. But the real fight, the real revolution is happening one level deeper. It's about who builds, owns, and controls the pipes that the world's money flows through.
And this right here, this is the future that all that new plumbing makes possible. It's a vision of an integrated, prosperous Africa powered by its own financial systems, trading with itself and with the rest of the world, but on its own terms. This isn't some far-off dream anymore. It's what's actively being built right now.
So why does any of this matter to the rest of us? Well, a few big reasons. Every single time a trade is settled using PAPSS, that's one less trade using the US dollar. It chips away at its dominance, one transaction at a time. It also creates this incredible blueprint for other regions in the global south to follow. And maybe most importantly, it dramatically boosts Africa's own economic strength and its negotiating power with the rest of the world.
And that kind of leaves us with this one final powerful thought. For pretty much the first time in modern history, we're seeing an entire continent build the tools to control its own economic future, without needing a thumbs up from Washington or London or Paris. And so the real question we have to ask ourselves is, what happens when an entire continent stops asking for permission?